Today we're going to teach you how to make a pattern for a sneaker. This is a really easy raw leather pattern, so it's quite quick to do. To start with, you're going to need a flat last, and we've actually just taped up half of it because we're only going to be doing the design on one half and then we'll be flipping it to get the same on the other side. It's also worth mentioning the last that we're actually using to get this pattern isn't a sneaker last, and following the instructions that we've got in our sneaker making ebook, it actually explains to you how you can use pretty much any flat last to make a pattern for a sneaker. So come on around and I'll show you how we can get started. So the first thing I want to do here is actually draw a center line at the front and a center line at the back, and you can see I've already done that. I've also just put a little notch here at the back and a notch at the front. That's going to come in handy later on when I'm laying it flat. Okay, so I'm going to draw the design of the sneaker onto one side of the last that we've got taped up. You can see I've already roughly put some lines in here just because I don't want this video to go for too long. So I'm just going to go over those lines so you can see a bit better. It's important to mention if you wanted to do some kind of high top, you would just extend this top line later on when we lay it flat on the paper. Okay, so I've created a really nice top line sort of shape of the sneaker there. I've also just marked in where the tongue would actually go, or how high up the tongue would go. I also like to just put a few little marks in here to show where the tongue is actually sitting underneath this back piece. So I'm just gonna sort of mark it in like that, just so we know where everything is supposed to go. Now, a couple more marks here before we move on to the next step. This area here is gonna wanna be stitched. So I'm just gonna put a couple of little marks in there, like that. And of course, also our eyelets. Now I'm just gonna sort of plot these in wherever, because again, I don't want this video to be too long. But when you're doing this at home, you should get your ruler out and actually evenly space those out. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is peel this off the last and lay it flat on paper. Okay, I'm going to pop that one to the side and do the same on the front. So before I stick this tongue section down, I'm actually going to fold my piece of paper in half. Don't need that other one. And I'm going to place that straight edge right along the fold there. Okay, and just stick that down nice and flat. Sometimes in this area you need a couple of little pleats or snips, more to the point. All right, so we're gonna actually trace in that excess that we allowed for the tongue. So I can sort of see that if I place that in there, that it's kind of coming to about that point. So you can put a little mark there. Okay, so I know that's how much underlay I want. And then I can just mark in the excess we've got there. And you can do this by eye. It should look something like that. The next thing we want to do is add in our lasting allowance at the bottom or the feather edge of both of these pieces. Because this is actually a raw cut pattern, and we've already allowed our underlay here, we only have this one allowance to go in. Now, I also mentioned before that the last we're using is a little bit smaller than the sneaker sole, or it's not a specific sneaker last. So we're actually going to put 25 mil lasting allowance here, just so that we know we've for sure got enough to get around the shape. And it's really important here at the back that I just sort of copy over that that's my notch. And we're going to do the same thing here on the front. We're going to add 25 mil on the toe area. And we'll just follow that line out. And remembering in here to put that little notch so we know that that's the center line of that front piece. Okay, so now we can go ahead and cut these out. With this one, we want to basically cut it out and then open it up to get the both sides. So it's important that we keep that folded while we cut this one out. Okay, so for the last part of this pattern, I have actually taped two pieces of A4 paper together. And what I'm going to do is just fold that in half like so. And I'm going to take this half piece that we've done and I'm going to line it up with the fold there so that I'm kind of twisting it so that that top line is matching up to where the fold is. And I'm going to really simply just trace it out. The most important thing about what I've just done is that I've actually extended this back section a bit further out. So where we sort of had that little notch here, we're now going to have it here to indicate the back. That extra that we're adding in that back section is going to come out later when we're actually pleating the leather itself. So for now, that's all we want to do. I'm now going to cut that out and then we'll have the other side. Okay, so if I open that up now, you can see I've got a full back piece and I've got my full front piece there as well, which is going to sit something like that. What I like to do is take the original pattern and actually just place it over the top. And if I take an awl, I can just sort of prick through there to make some marks where my eyelet holes are. Remember, when you're doing this properly at home, you'll space those out evenly. Okay, so let's now open that up. And you can just go over those little marks a bit more clearly, like so. And you can also draw in where your underlay is. And you'd want to do the same thing on the other side as well. Sometimes it also helps to take these patterns and then retrace them again onto a thicker card, something like this. And once you've traced that onto a thicker card, you can put sort of your stitch marks in and your underlay in, and you know where your lasting allowance is and all that kind of stuff, just so that you can reuse these patterns over and over again.